My graduation, my father declared he was cutting me off. "You're not my real daughter anyway." The room gasped. I smiled, walked to the podium, and said, "Since we're sharing DNA secrets," I pulled out an envelope. His wife's face turned pale as I revealed. What happens when the man who shaped your entire life decides to publicly disown you on the day you achieved your biggest dream? You expose his darkest secret. My graduation day from UC Berkeley was supposed to be a triumph, but it quickly spiraled into a brutal, public confrontation, and I was holding a truth that could bring his whole world crashing down. Before I tell you about that explosive dinner, let me take you back. Growing up in suburban Chicago, my father, Matthew, cast a long shadow. Our colonial house, with its manicured lawn, was a facade, perfectly polished on the outside, but inside, I lived under a microscope that could never quite focus on me. No matter what I achieved, it was always blurry to him. Never quite good enough. He was the CFO of a powerful financial firm, and his definition of success was rigid. Harvard Business School, 7-figure bonuses, and the respect of men who wore similar suits and thought similar thoughts. There was no room for deviation. My mother, Diana, existed in his orbit. Her once vibrant spirit, the art history major with museum dreams, had faded over 25 years of marriage, becoming a reflection of his preferences. Sometimes, though, she'd sneak me to art exhibitions when he was on business trips, and her eyes would light up with a spark I rarely saw at home. "Your father means well," she'd whisper, her mantra after he'd criticized an A- in calculus like it was a moral failing. Debate team. Acceptable. Theater club. Absolutely not. My older brothers, James and Tyler, had long since fallen in line. James, the perfect firstborn, was a carbon copy of Dad. Tyler, after a brief rebellious semester abroad, ultimately joined Dad's firm. But me. I was different. While they played stock market simulators, I devoured books on civil rights and the Supreme Court. Our dinner table became a battleground, with Dad dismissing my idealistic notions. "The law," he'd declare, carving his steak with surgical precision, "is for people who couldn't cut it in finance. It's reactive, not proactive." Oh, the irony of that statement would hit me years later. My academic achievements piled up: debate captain, National Merit Scholar, perfect SATs, but they were always wrong in his eyes. "Imagine what you could do," he'd say, "if you applied this intelligence to something practical." He'd transform my accomplishments into missed opportunities. The breaking point arrived my senior year, with college acceptance letters. I'd applied to business programs to appease him, but also to pre-law at places like Berkeley. The day that Berkeley acceptance arrived, with a full scholarship, that was the day I decided I was charting my own course. I called a family meeting, my hands trembling but my voice steady. I was going to Berkeley, pre-law. My mother's eyes widened with a mix of pride and terror. James scoffed. Tyler stared at his shoes. My father's reaction wasn't an explosion, but something far more chilling: ice-cold calculation. "Berkeley," he said, the word tasting bitter. "California. Pre-law." Each word dropped into the silence like stones. Then came the bombshell: "I've allocated funds for your education based on certain expectations. Those funds were for a proper business education. If you choose this other path, you do so without my financial support." My voice sounded foreign. "You're cutting me off because I want to study law instead of business." "I'm reallocating resources where they'll provide better returns," he corrected, as if I were a disappointing stock. "The choice is yours, Natalie." My mother tried to intervene, her voice tiny. "Matthew, surely we can." "The decision is made, Diana," he cut her off, not even looking her way. That night, Mom slipped into my room. "He'll come around," she whispered, though her eyes were already giving up hope. She pressed an envelope into my hands. "It's not much. Just what I've saved. He doesn't know." Inside was $5,000. My first installment of independence, and the first crack in my perception of my parents' unified front. 2 months later, I left for California with 2 suitcases, Mom's hidden cash, and a determination that burned hotter than any approval my father had ever withheld. Landing in San Francisco was both terrifying and exhilarating. Berkeley buzzed with an energy so different from the buttoned-up Chicago suburbs. Here, people debated ideas passionately. Professors encouraged questioning the status quo. For the first time, I felt like I could truly breathe. But freedom had a steep price. My scholarship covered tuition, but little else. Mom's $5,000 vanished into deposits and books. While old classmates posted pictures from parent-funded spring breaks, I juggled 3 jobs: morning shifts at a campus coffee shop, evenings at the library, and weekend research for a law professor. My tiny shared apartment became my sanctuary and my prison. Many nights, I'd fall asleep at my desk, waking up with textbook pages imprinted on my cheek. My roommate, Stephanie, a sociology major, would drape blankets over me, leaving sticky notes. Most people use beds, revolutionary concept. She became the first member of my chosen family. Rachel, a fierce environmental science major, taught me passion didn't have to be quiet. Marcus, brilliant in computer science, rounded out our core group. They didn't understand my family pressure, but they understood how to support someone figuring out who they were beyond expectations. Blood doesn't define family, Rachel would say. Actions do. Those words became my mantra. For 4 years, contact with my father was minimal. Cold emails about grades. My mother called weekly, her voice dropping to a whisper to ask if I needed anything. Tyler sent awkward, but well-meaning texts. James remained Dad's shadow. Professor Eleanor Williams, a brilliant constitutional law expert, became the mentor I'd craved. "You argue like someone who's been defending themselves their whole life," she observed after grilling me in a seminar. "That's not a criticism. It's a strength if you channel it properly." Under her guidance, I transformed from a student desperate to prove herself into a scholar confident in her own analysis. By junior year, she recommended me for an internship at Goldstein & Parker, a prestigious firm specializing in corporate accountability. The irony wasn't lost on me. Working with attorneys who fought corruption, not just profited from it, showed me an alternative path. My supervisor, Laura Goldstein, saw something in me. "Richards," she told me one evening, "you understand how these corporations think, but still maintain your moral compass. That's rare. We need more lawyers like you." Her words validated my path in a way no grade ever could. Senior year, I was at the top of my class, president of the Pre-Law Society, with early acceptance to Yale, my dream school. The cost had been steep, perpetually exhausted, constantly working, my bank account hovering near zero. But I was doing it. As graduation approached, I sent invitations, more out of obligation than expectation. 3 weeks before, Mom emailed, "Can't make it. Your father has an important client meeting." I'd learned to manage my expectations. My friends rallied. "We'll cheer so loud you won't even notice," Rachel promised. I convinced myself I was at peace with their absence. Maybe it was better this way. No tension, just pure celebration with people who truly supported me. What I didn't know was fate had a different ceremony in store. One that would permanently alter the Richards family dynamic. Graduation morning. Perfect Berkeley weather. Stephanie bounced on my bed. "Rise and shine, future Supreme Court Justice." Rachel arrived with bagels and custom shirts. Marcus followed with his parents, who'd adopted me for the day, bringing flowers and a card that made me tear up. "None of that," Marcus's mom, June, scolded gently. "We need you looking fierce." As we lined up, I scanned the audience, a reflex. And then I saw them. 4 rows back. My father, ramrod straight in an expensive suit, looked utterly out of place. My mother beside him, clutching her purse. James and Tyler flanking them. My heart lurched. "They're here," I whispered to Rachel, unable to tear my gaze away. "My family." Rachel's expression hardened. "Well," she squeezed my hand, "now they get to see what they almost missed." The ceremony blurred. Natalie Richards, summa cum laude. My friends roared. From the stage, I saw Mom clapping wildly, Tyler genuinely smiling. James offered restrained applause. My father's hands came together exactly 3 times, the minimum requirement. Still, they had come. That had to mean something, right? After the ceremony, I navigated the crowd. Mom reached me first, pulling me into a perfume-scented embrace. "I'm so proud of you," she whispered fiercely. Tyler gave me an awkward but sincere hug. "Nice job, sis. Barkley looks good on you." James offered a stiff handshake. My father remained slightly apart, evaluating me like a balance sheet. "Natalie," he said, extending his hand formally, "congratulations." I shook it, feeling the familiar distance. "Thank you for coming. I thought you had an important meeting." "Plans change," he replied cryptically. My friends and their families bounded over, filling the awkward silence with cheerful chatter. "We've made lunch reservations for everyone," Marcus's father announced. "Our treat." My father's jaw tightened, but Mom quickly jumped in. "How thoughtful. We'd be delighted." Lunch was an exercise in contrasting worlds. My California life collided with my Chicago past. Conversations about law school and campus memories mixed uncomfortably with Dad's probing questions about starting salaries and firm rankings. While my friends' parents beamed, my father found ways to turn every accomplishment into a question. Yale. Interesting choice. Harvard would align better. Constitutional law. Rather abstract. Student body president. Valuab. Though I wonder if your time might have been better spent on judicial internships. With each comment, my friends exchanged glances, their parents bewildered. My mother tried to redirect. My brothers looked increasingly uncomfortable. Tyler genuinely tried to connect. He asked about Professor Williams. "She sounds amazing," he said. "You always did need strong teachers." Before I could respond, Dad cut in. "What Natalie has always needed is practical guidance. These academic mentors fill students' heads with idealistic notions." The table went silent. June, Marcus's mother, finally spoke. "From what we've seen, your daughter has a remarkable ability to translate her education into practical skills. Her work with that corporate accountability firm was quite impressive." Dad's eyebrows raised. "Corporate accountability? What exactly does that entail?" The tone in his voice made my stomach clench. "We were entering dangerous territory. We investigate corporate fraud and represent whistleblowers," I explained. "Cases where companies have misled investors." Something flickered across his face. So fast, I might have missed it. "Sounds like glorified tattling," he dismissed. "The business world requires discretion and loyalty." "I think it requires ethics and transparency," I countered, before I could stop myself. The temperature at the table plummeted. Mom's hand flew to her necklace. James shifted. Tyler stared into his water. We managed to finish lunch with superficial conversation, but the tension was palpable. As we prepared to leave, Dad announced he'd made dinner reservations for just our family at Laurel Heights, the most expensive restaurant in Berkeley. "We need family time," he stated, breaking no argument. 7 o'clock. My friends looked concerned, but I assured them I'd meet up later. Rachel squeezed my arm. "Text if you need an emergency rescue. We can fake a crisis in 10 minutes flat." I laughed, but wondered if I might actually need it. Laurel Heights exuded old-world luxury, polished wood, crystal, hushed conversations. Dad had chosen a table in the main dining room, not a private one, which surprised me. The place was packed with other graduates, their families beaming, toasting. The contrast with our table was stark. He ordered an expensive bottle of wine, then spent 20 minutes interrogating me about Yale. "New Haven," he said with thinly veiled distaste. "Another 4 years away from Chicago. One might think you're deliberately choosing locations based on their distance from family." "I'm choosing based on quality of education and career opportunities," I replied evenly. "Yale does have an excellent reputation," Mom offered tentatively. Dad ignored her. "And your focus on constitutional law? What do you plan to do with that? Argue theoretical points while making a public defender's salary?" Tyler tried to deflect. "Dad, Nat just graduated summa cum laude. Maybe we could just celebrate that tonight. I'm simply trying to understand the return on investment here, Dad countered, swirling his wine. 4 years of education should lead to tangible outcomes. My education isn't a stock portfolio, I said, heat rising in my cheeks. Its value isn't measured only in dollars. James, the perpetual peacemaker, jumped in. How's your roommate Stephanie handling job hunting? Finance, wasn't it? Environmental science, I corrected. And she's already accepted a position with a climate research institute. Dad scoffed. Another idealist. You certainly found your people out here. With each passing minute, the tension mounted. A family nearby celebrated a new car key for their graduate. Now that's a practical graduation gift, Dad remarked pointedly. Useful for entering the real world. I don't need a car in New Haven, I said. The campus is walkable. That wasn't my point, Natalie, he replied coldly. The waiter brought our Aunt Reese, a momentary reprieve. Mom valiantly tried to change the subject, asking about Berkeley experiences. I began describing my work with a legal aid clinic, how we'd prevented 3 evictions. Dad interrupted, cutting his steak. Noble, but unsustainable. The legal profession isn't charity work. Some of us believe in using our skills to help others, not just enrich ourselves. I shot back, my patience finally fraying. His knife paused mid-cut. And what exactly are you implying about my career, Natalie? I'm not implying anything about your career, Dad. I'm stating facts about mine. The table fell silent. Mom looked terrified. Tyler stared at his plate. James watched Dad. Your career, my father said, placing his silverware down with deliberate care, hasn't even begun. Yet you speak with such certainty, despite having virtually no real-world experience. I have 4 years of internships, clinical work, and research. I counted. Just because it's not in finance doesn't make it invalid. 4 years of playing at being a lawyer, he dismissed. Let me tell you what I see. A young woman who had every advantage, every opportunity to excel in a field with proven success, and who chose instead to waste her potential on idealistic crusades. The restaurant seemed to quiet around us, or maybe it was just the blood rushing in my ears. Matthew. Mom whispered urgently. He ignored her. Do you know what it looks like to colleagues when they ask about my daughter? And I have to explain that she's chosen to become a professional antagonist to the very business world that provided her privileges. I didn't have privileges, I said, my voice rising. You cut me off, remember? I worked 3 jobs to get through college. I earned every single thing I have. With an education funded by my years of hard work building our family's reputation and resources, he countered. My scholarship funded my education. I corrected. My jobs paid for everything else. He laughed, a short, dismissive sound that cut deeper than any criticism. You truly believe you did this all yourself? That the Richards name had nothing to do with your opportunities? Your naivety is exactly why you're not ready for the real world. Nearby tables grew quieter. Dad, Tyler attempted. Maybe we should. No, my father snapped. It's time for some honesty here. Natalie has chosen to reject everything this family stands for, our values, our career paths. That's her choice. But choices have consequences. He turned his cold gaze back to me. If you insist on pursuing this path, investigating corporations and undermining the business world, then you do so completely on your own. Not with my support, not with my connections, and not with my name. The restaurant was so silent I could hear the clink of glass from the bar. Are you seriously disowning me at my graduation dinner? I asked, my voice a bare whisper. I'm simply clarifying the terms of our relationship moving forward, he replied, like a business contract. You've made it abundantly clear you don't respect what I've built. So be it. Consider yourself independent in all respects. Mom gasped. Matthew, please. Stay out of this, Diana, he snapped. You can't be serious, Dad. Tyler interjected. This is insane. It's her graduation day, my father replied coolly, which makes it the perfect time to establish clear boundaries before she embarks on her chosen path. Natalie wants independence, now she has it completely. The humiliation burned through me like acid. Other families were witnessing this. My graduation day, which I'd fought so hard for, was being deliberately destroyed by the man who should have been proudest. In that moment, something shifted. Years of independence had shown me my own strength. Years of building relationships with people who truly supported me had shown me what real family looked like. And 4 years of studying justice had convinced me that some truths needed to be spoken. The secret I'd carried since high school, a document I discovered in his office, which first propelled me toward law, suddenly felt less like a burden and more like a shield. I straightened my shoulders and looked him dead in the eyes. If that's how you want to play this, I said, my voice steadier than I felt, then I think it's time everyone heard the real reason I chose corporate accountability law. A flicker of something, uncertainty, fear, crossed his face. An expression I'd never seen. This isn't the place for your dramatics, Natalie, he warned, his voice low. You made it the place, I replied, keeping my voice calm. You wanted to do this here, in front of everyone. So, let's be completely honest. Mom reached across the table, her fingers trembling. Natalie, please. It's okay, Mom, I said gently. I'm not angry anymore. I just think it's time for the truth. I turned back to my father, his face hardening into an unreadable mask. Diners were openly staring now. When I was 17, I began. I was looking for a stapler in your home office. You were in London. Mom was at her charity luncheon. You remember how meticulously organized your desk always was. Everything in its place. His jaw tightened, but he remained silent. I accidentally knocked over that leather file box you kept locked. Except that day, it wasn't locked. The contents spilled everywhere. As I was gathering the papers, I noticed something strange. Financial documents from your firm, Westridge Capital Partners, but with inconsistencies I couldn't understand at first. James shifted. Natalie, whatever you think you found. Invoices for consulting services that didn't exist, I continued steadily. Balance sheets with discrepancies in the millions. And most interestingly, documents detailing settlements with 3 families. The Morrisons, the Guzmans, and the Taylors. The color had begun to drain from my father's face. I didn't understand everything then, I admitted, but I understood enough to know something was very wrong. I photographed those documents before putting them back exactly as I found them. I looked at my brothers. Did you ever wonder why Dad was so adamant about keeping me away from corporate law? Why he was so threatened by my interest in financial crimes? Tyler's expression showed dawning comprehension. James looked away. You've been investigating me. Dad accused, his voice dangerously low. I've been understanding you, I clarified. Understanding why you built our family on the appearance of perfection, while hiding what really paid for it. Those 3 families lost nearly everything because of investment advice you gave them. Advice you knew was fraudulent. You directed them into holdings your firm needed to offload before the 2008 crash. The restaurant was completely silent. Every ear tuned to our table. You have no idea what you're talking about, my father hissed, but his confidence had faltered. The settlements you paid included non-disclosure agreements, I continued. That's why none of them ever spoke publicly about how Westridge Capital Partners, how you specifically, betrayed their trust. Mr. Morrison had a heart attack from the stress. The Guzman's daughter had to drop out of college. The Taylors lost their home. My mother's face crumpled, tears streaming. Natalie, please stop. You knew, I realized, seeing her reaction. You knew all along. She couldn't meet my eyes. Those settlements, I said, turning back to my father, conveniently paid out just before James and Tyler started college. Their education was funded by the financial destruction of 3 families who trusted you. James stood abruptly. This is ridiculous. I'm not listening to this anymore. Sit down, my father commanded, and James obeyed, the trained response of years. Dad leaned forward, his voice barely audible. You have no proof. Those were legitimate settlements for investment losses. Standard practice. The documents I found detailed intentional misrepresentation, I replied. And they included internal communications about moving those clients into doomed investments to protect the firm's preferred clients. That's fraud, Dad. That's why you were so desperate to keep me away from corporate law. You were afraid I'd connect the dots. Tyler looked stunned. Dad, is this true? Of course not, my father snapped, but his conviction was gone. It's why I chose Barclay, I continued, not just to get away from you, but because it has one of the best corporate accountability programs. It's why I interned at Goldstein and Parker. And it's why I'm going to Yale to study under Professor Harrington, who literally wrote the book on prosecuting financial fraud. The realization of my deliberate path hit my father visibly. His face, normally composed, showed genuine alarm. You wouldn't, he breathed. I'm not threatening you, I clarified. I'm explaining why I chose my path. I wanted to understand how someone could do what you did. How my own father could justify causing so much harm while presenting himself as the paragon of business ethics. I wanted to make sure I never became like that. Mom's quiet sobs provided the soundtrack as decades of family mythology crumbled. Diners were openly staring, some whispering, others typing on their phones. These are dangerous accusations, Dad said, his businessman's mask reasserting itself. Accusations that could be considered defamatory. Truth is an absolute defense against defamation, I replied, my law education serving me well. And we both know what I'm saying is true. I stood up, placing my napkin beside my barely touched meal. You asked me to be independent, Dad. To forge my own path completely separate from you. I accept those terms. But understand this. My choice to study corporate accountability isn't rebellion. It's redemption. If the Richards name is going to mean something in the future, I want it to stand for justice, not profit at any cost. I looked at my mother and brothers. I love you all. When you're ready to talk, really talk, about our family and move forward honestly, I'll be there. But I won't participate in the fiction anymore. With that, I walked away from the table, past the staring diners, through the restaurant's ornate doors, and into the cool Barclay evening. My hands were shaking, but my steps were steady. Behind me, I could hear commotion. My father demanding the check, my mother calling my name. I didn't look back. 4 years ago, I'd left Chicago with determination and hidden pain. Tonight, I was leaving that restaurant having finally set down the heaviest burden I'd carried. The truth I'd protected, not to shield my father, but to preserve what little family connection I had left. As I pulled out my phone to text my friends, I felt lighter than I had in years. The secret was out. Whatever came next, it would be built on truth, not carefully constructed illusions. My phone buzzed before I'd even made it back to my apartment. Rachel, Stephanie, and Marcus had created a group chat, emergency response team, coordinating their arrival with ice cream and tequila. I smiled despite the emotional turmoil. This was what real support looked like. I'd barely unlocked my door when my phone rang. Mom. Her voice was raw from crying. Natalie, where are you? Are you safe? I'm fine, Mom, I assured her, sinking onto my bed. I'm in my apartment. Your father is. She paused, struggling for words. He's not in a good place right now. I imagine not, I replied, strangely calm. Where are you? At the hotel. Your brothers are here, too. Your father went for a walk to clear his head. I knew clear his head was a euphemism for something more volatile. Mom, I said gently, did you know about the settlements? About what really happened? Her silence answered before her words. I knew there were problems at the firm. I knew there were settlements. Matthew said it was standard practice, that all investment firms had occasional losses. But you suspected it was more. I pressed. A heavy sigh. There were signs. Things he said when he thought I wasn't listening. The timing of certain trips, how stressed he was during that period. Her voice dropped to a whisper. He changed after that. became harder, more controlling, especially with you children. Why didn't you say anything? What would you have had me say, Natalie? Accuse your father of fraud without proof. Destroy our family based on suspicions. You don't understand what it's like to balance these kinds of impossible choices. But I did understand, more than she knew. I'd been balancing my own impossible choice for years, family loyalty against my moral compass. What happens now? I asked. I don't know, she admitted. The uncertainty in her voice told me how dramatically things had shifted. Diana Richards, who had scripted every family event for 25 years, had no script for this. A knock at my door. My friends. Mom, I need to go. We can talk tomorrow. Natalie, please. Desperation edged her voice. Don't do anything with this information. Don't go to authorities or journalists. Give us time to figure this out as a family. The request hung between us, the familiar pattern of covering up uncomfortable truths. I'm not planning to do anything right now, I said carefully. But I won't lie if directly asked, and I won't pretend it didn't happen. That's the best I can offer. She seemed to accept this compromise. I love you, Natalie. Despite everything, please know that. After hanging up, I opened the door to my friends, armed with Ben & Jerry's, tequila, and concerned expressions. They filed in, setting up an impromptu comfort station. So, Rachel said, handing me a spoon, on a scale of 1 to complete disaster, how bad was family dinner? I laughed. Let's just say I won't be invited to any Richards family gatherings for the foreseeable future. Over ice cream and shots, I recounted the evening. They listened, expressions cycling through shock, outrage, and pride. Holy, Stephanie whispered when I finished. You actually did it. You stood up to him. Marcus shook his head. I always knew you were badass, but that's next-level courage. Or next-level stupidity, I countered, the adrenaline finally wearing off. I just blew up my entire family in a public restaurant. No, Rachel said firmly, taking my hand. Your father blew up your family when he decided to disown you at your graduation dinner. You just refused to be the only casualty. We stayed up until 3 a.m., analyzing every moment, speculating about repercussions, eventually transitioning to silly graduation memories as the alcohol softened the evening's sharp edges. When they finally left, promising to check on me, I lay awake, too wired to sleep. My phone lit up at 4:23 a.m. Tyler. Is it true? All of it? I typed back immediately. Yes. I have copies of everything. His reply came moments later. I always wondered where the money for James' Harvard tuition suddenly came from. Dad said it was a bonus. I need time to process this. Take all the time you need, I replied. For what it's worth, I'm sorry about tonight. You deserved better. Congratulations on graduating. Tears pricked my eyes at his small kindness. Thank you, Ty. Morning brought a flood of messages. Some from extended family who'd heard versions of the confrontation, others from friends. Most surprisingly, an email from Professor Williams, proud of you. The message contained just one line, standing up for truth is never easy, but always right. My office door is open if you need to talk. News traveled fast. Mom called again around noon. Your father is flying back to Chicago today. James is going with him. Tyler and I are staying another day. Why? I asked. Tyler wants to talk to you, she explained. And so do I properly, not over the phone. Can we meet for coffee this afternoon? We met at a quiet cafe. Mom and Tyler already seated, both looking exhausted. Mom embraced me tightly, her familiar perfume bringing an unexpected wave of emotion. Tyler gave me an awkward side hug. Your father is consulting with the firm's legal team, Mom began without preamble. He's concerned about potential implications of what was said last night. Is he denying it? I asked. Tyler and Mom exchanged glances. Not to us, Tyler admitted. He tried at first, but when I pressed him, he trailed off, shaking his head. He said he didn't understand the pressures of the financial crisis. That sometimes difficult decisions had to be made. Classic rationalization, I noted. He's afraid you're going to go public, Mom said, or take legal action. I meant what I said last night. I didn't collect that information to expose or blackmail him. I needed to understand why he was the way he was. Why our family functioned the way it did. But you could, Tyler pointed out. I mean, you have the evidence. I sighed, stirring my untouched coffee. What would that accomplish now? The statute of limitations has passed. The settlements ensured the affected families can't speak out. It would destroy his career and reputation, affect the firm's other employees, and for what? Justice. That's a decade too late. Mom looked relieved, but Tyler seemed troubled. So he just gets away with it. What he did to those families, how he's treated you. Last night's humiliation. I didn't say that, I clarified. I said I'm not planning to expose him publicly or legally. But our relationship has fundamentally changed. I won't pretend it didn't happen, and I won't accept being treated the way he's treated me my entire life. Mom reached for my hand. He does love you, Natalie, in his way. His way isn't good enough anymore, I said gently, but firmly. Love doesn't come with conditions or ultimatums. We talked for nearly 3 hours. Mom revealed details about her marriage, how she'd slowly surrendered pieces of herself to maintain peace, how she convinced herself that protecting their image was protecting us. Tyler shared his own struggles with Dad's expectations, his disillusionment with his job. I don't even know if I want to go back, he admitted. Everything feels tainted now. As we left, Mom hesitated. James is angry with you. He thinks you've betrayed the family. James has always been Dad's echo, I said. He needs time to find his own voice, just like we all do. She nodded sadly. We're flying back tomorrow. Will you be all right? I'll be better than all right, I assured her. I have good friends, exciting plans, and for the first time, I feel like I can move forward without carrying secrets that were never mine to keep. That evening, as I packed for my upcoming move, my phone exploded. An email from James, how could you, remained unopened. A text from an unknown number. A journalist from the Chicago Tribune, interested in Westridge Capital Partners. Emails from distant relatives expressing concern about troubling rumors. The news was spreading faster than I'd anticipated. I turned off my phone, determined to focus on my future. Later that night, a gentle knock revealed Stephanie, uncharacteristically serious. You need to see this, she said, holding out her phone. A business news headline. Westridge Capital Partners announces restructuring. Matthew Richards steps down as CFO, citing family priorities. The speed of the response told me everything about how seriously my father had taken the threat. He was cutting his losses, controlling the narrative. Are you okay? Stephanie asked. I considered the question. Yeah, I said, I think I actually am. 3 months blurred into change. I moved into a small, sunny apartment in New Haven. My Berkeley friends helped me move, turning it into an adventure. Rachel decorated my fridge with ridiculous magnets. Stephanie arranged my bookshelf by vibes. Marcus installed security features on my laptop, his way of showing care. New Haven isn't Berkeley, Rachel had warned. You'll need new friends who get your particular brand of intensity. I'm not intense, I protested. They'd laughed in perfect unison. The apartment was quiet now. Just me and my thoughts. A knock at the door. Through the peephole, Tyler, shuffling nervously. I pulled the door open. Surprise, he said awkwardly, holding up a plant. Housewarming gift. Supposedly impossible to kill, which seemed appropriate for your schedule. Tyler. I managed, genuinely shocked. What are you doing here? How did you find my address? Mom had it, he admitted. I should have called. Was afraid you'd say no. I let him in, noting the luggage. Are you staying nearby? Hotel downtown, he said, looking around. This is nice. Good light. The small talk felt bizarre. We stood in uncomfortable silence until we both spoke at once. I left the firm. How's everyone? We both stopped, then laughed. You first, I offered. Tyler set the plant down, sank onto my couch. I left the firm. And Chicago. Moving to Boston next week, actually. Accepted a position with an investment advisory firm that specializes in ethical investing. Wow, I said, impressed. That's a big change. Yeah, well, he shrugged. Turns out working for Dad lost its appeal once I understood what I was really participating in. He met my eyes. You were right, national. About all of it. I sat beside him, processing this. How did he take your resignation? About as well as you'd expect. Accusations of betrayal, reminders of all he's done for me, threats about my future. The usual Richards family warmth. His smile was tinged with sadness. And Mom. That's the other news. They're separating. Surprised by the speed, but not the fact. Her decision or his. Mutual, supposedly, but Mom moved out. She's staying with Aunt Patricia. Looking for her own place. He hesitated. She's different, national. Like watching someone wake up from a long sleep. Last week, she mentioned taking art classes again. The image brought unexpected tears to my eyes. She wanted to call you, Tyler continued, but she's afraid you're still angry with her for not protecting you. I was never angry with Mom, I clarified. Disappointed, maybe. Sad for her. Definitely. But not angry. You should tell her that. We talked for hours. Tyler described the implosion at home. How James, initially siding with Dad, started asking his own questions. How Dad negotiated a strategic departure to prevent investigation. It's like watching a carefully built house of cards collapse, Tyler observed. It was always going to collapse eventually, I pointed out. Houses of cards aren't meant to be permanent structures. He nodded. I keep thinking about those families. The ones from the settlements. I looked them up. The Taylors eventually recovered, but Mrs. Morrison still struggles. The Guzman's daughter never finished college. The weight of these consequences hung between us. That's why I chose Boston. The firm I'm joining has a foundation that provides financial education to families affected by predatory investment practices. It's not atonement, exactly, but it's a start. Pride for my brother swelled. That sounds perfect for you, Ty. What about you? He asked. Any regrets about how everything went down? I considered. I regret the public nature of it. That wasn't my intention. But the truth coming out. No. That needed to happen for all of us. Before leaving, Tyler handed me an envelope from Mom. Inside was a substantial check and a handwritten note. This is from my personal savings, money that is truly mine to give. I should have supported you from the beginning. This doesn't make up for the past, but perhaps it can help with your future. All my love, Mom. The gesture touched me deeply, not for the money, but for what it represented. My mother reclaiming her autonomy. As summer transitioned to fall, other pieces fell into place. James finally called. I'm still processing, he admitted, his voice lacking its usual confidence. But I miss my sister. We agreed to small steps, no expectations of immediate resolution. Mom's transformation continued. She found an apartment, started painting classes, therapy. I'm learning who Diana is, she told me. It's terrifying and exhilarating. I understood exactly what she meant. Professor Harrington's corporate accountability seminar became the highlight of my academic experience. She kept me after class one day. You bring a unique perspective, she observed. Personal experience, perhaps. I hesitated, then acknowledged the truth. My family situation is complicated. She nodded. The most valuable legal minds often emerge from complicated backgrounds. They understand the grey areas. As for my father, the silence between us remained. I heard updates through Mom and my brothers, his new consulting position, his smaller apartment, his insistence that he'd merely done what any smart businessman would do. I didn't expect an apology. Some people are incapable of that. But his absence from my life no longer felt like a punishment. It felt like space to grow. During a study break, I met Rachel. "You seem different," she observed. "More settled." "I feel lighter," I admitted. "Like I've been carrying this secret weight for years and now it's gone." "Do you regret exposing your dad?" she asked directly. "No," I said, without hesitation. "But I'm not interested in further exposure either. What matters now is moving forward with integrity." That became my guiding principle. Moving forward with integrity. Not perfection, not the appearance of success, but genuine integrity in all my choices. Standing up to my father hadn't been about revenge. It had been about refusing to participate in a family system built on deception. The aftermath was messy and painful, but also necessary and ultimately healing. My family was forever changed, fragmented in some ways, but more authentic. Mom was discovering her voice. Tyler was aligning his career with his values. Even James was asking questions he'd never dared. As for me, I was exactly where I belonged, pursuing a path true to my values. The journey hadn't been what any of us expected. But perhaps that was the point. Real growth rarely follows planned paths. Sometimes it requires disruption, painful truths, and the courage to stand firmly in your own story, even when it means revealing secrets others prefer to keep buried. I've come to believe that family isn't defined by silence and compliance, but by truth and mutual respect. Sometimes, building a genuine connection requires dismantling the false structures first. It's messy, it's painful, but ultimately, it's worth it. Have you ever had to choose between keeping a painful family secret and standing in your truth? Tell me what you think in the comments below. I really want to know.